Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside the Burrow, the FAU podcast for and by fans. My name is Dan. I am joined as usual by Shane and Jack, and tonight we are going to break down the Western Kentucky win, great win this past weekend. We'll talk a little bit about the QB, maybe brewing QB controversy, and then we have somebody joining us from the FIU beat for the Shula Bowl this weekend. So I guess to get started, really exciting game this weekend. I think pretty frustrating in the beginning, but as you know, if you're listening or watching the show, most likely you watched the game and you saw what happened. And I think it's really this team overall. I think it to be commended for just how resilient they are. I mentioned this on Twitter that kind of the entire team. It wasn't just kind of one person. It was everything. I mean, you can even go back to Matt Habel. I mean, some bombing punts that kind of had a probably a bigger difference in this game than they would in a normal game. So it really was like a team win that they did everything. Basically the entire team did everything they needed to, a little bit, and struggled through offense. Defense just, I mean, again, another game where they're keeping team out of the end zone. It just was that when you sit back, that watching the game was frustrating and exciting, and then you sit back at the end and you're like, that was just a great team win, a great resilient team win. So we'll talk a little bit about a little bit more of that, but I think the biggest question on a lot of people's minds is going to be the QB controversy, where James Posey came in for Nick Tronti, and the offense looked the best that it did by far with Javion Posey in the game. So I don't know, Shane, what are your thoughts on this potentially brewing QB controversy?
Yeah, we've seen this before, right? We were just talking about before the show. Let's all remember the last time FAU was down in Sweetwater, playing that school down south. Chris Robinson was a redshirt freshman, and he threw the ball out of bounds away on a fourth down. Lane lost it. Chris, I think he was still kind of recovering from an ankle injury, and they put DeAndre Johnson in the game, and FAU kind of exploded, went on to win 49-14. Now, we could probably pull up the message board where people wanted to throw away Chris at that point, right? He's not serious. I remember him dancing at half. Remember that whole thing, Chris? His dancing coming back from commercial against Air Force and Old Dominion. I'm trying to remember which game it was. And it was, we have Kareth White, Devin Motor Singletary, and DeAndre Johnson. Let's just run a version of the triple option. I mean, literally, it's kind of deja vu. DeAndre Johnson provided a spark. The very next week, we played West Kentucky at home. You know who started? Chris Robinson. You know me, we've talked about Javion Posey a lot on here. I'm a Javion Posey stan. I know the players like him. We saw he has tremendous athletic ability. I think he's even stronger in a way. He looks a little thicker than DeAndre Johnson and just as much speed. But we also got a glimpse of a guy who didn't have spring ball and played receiver last year. When the first time he got under pressure, he pretty much, for any of you guys that play NCAA or Madden, he just started tapping the X button and just threw it up, okay? And as off as Tronti's been this year, he's only had one interception, maybe a couple more. I think they end up sticking with him, probably with a short leash. I just think, I pointed out, I think the play calling's been fine. There just needs to be some better reads, on the quarterback keep. There needs to be a safety looked off for an extra second. Tronti did throw a couple of nice passes that just didn't get completed. TJ Chase had the one down the sideline where his foot was out of bounds. He did throw one to Brandon Robinson in the end zone against Western Kentucky, and it seems like Robinson jumped just a hair early. So It just seemed like he was just kind of short all night from that big play. The O-line was struggling a little bit, and they got better when Javion Posey got in, and there was a little bit more of a threat. But again, Javion Posey's on film now. So I don't know. I definitely just think they end up sticking with Nick Tronti this week.
And I agree with you, Shane. Tronte just brings that experience that you're going to need in a rivalry game on the road. I mean, yeah, Posey provide the spark, just like Coach Taggart said after the game on Saturday, and he said it in the presser on Monday as well. He provides a spark at practice, and the way how players respond to him in the offense gives that extra dimension that sometimes that offense needs, especially if it's a bit sluggish. So
He almost could be the Nick Tronte of the Chris Robinson era.
Yes.
Like, I mean, essentially.
It's funny. West Kentucky is the same team. How much different is that drive where Nick Tronte put West Kentucky away? You know, we were leading at that point last year. He put them away with a 22-yard run, and the drive Javion Posey did. We remember Tronte coming into games like we struggled against even last year against Middle Tennessee at home. And Nick Tronte got put in on a play that was important. Malcolm Davidson scored a long touchdown because the defense was thinking a little bit. It was able to open up those running back holes. It's literally, I mean, we've seen this. It seems like we've seen this every year.
And so, you know, if this is just that rendition of that, or maybe you guess the triple option out of the spread. I mean, it reminds me of Richie James at Middle Tennessee and Charlie Partridge's last game up in Murfreesboro, if you guys remember. But I mean,
that basketball game, right?
Well, yeah, right.
Just 77-55.
Yeah, just an incredible amount of points, and it was traumatizing. But that being said, just being able to run the ball the way we did late, even going for it in 4th and 1. I mean, we don't want to talk too much about the game, but just going for it on 4th and 1 in the red zone, I love that play call so much.
I love that call. I think everyone's agreement they were going to go for it there.
That's the
right.
Like,
just
you have the momentum, you have all the timeouts, just go for it and try to get it done. Dan, I'm really happy you mentioned Hayball because he hasn't been. We've been waiting for him to explode because we know that he can do it, and he hasn't done it yet this year. And Taggart even said that he had a challenge Hayball going into last week. And Vladdy Rivas had a pretty solid game too in a very difficult environment. So Dan, what you said was right. The entire team did enough in all facets of the game. Shane is right about Posey bringing that spark to the team. And I agree at the end of the day that I think Tronte is going to get the start. But, you know, hey, it just like what happened with Chris last year. 2 years ago, last time we were in West Miami, which is not close to the beach at all. If the offense continues to be sluggish, we got to make the pull. We got to put the spark in and see if we can put some points on the board. FIU around, the more they're going to believe that they have a chance to pull it off.
I even think regardless, there's going to be packages for Posey.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just too athletic to not leave. You know, and I kind of get why Lane put him at receiver last year. I mean, he's strong. He's really fast. So it's just like he's one of those kids where it's like, okay, we just got to figure out a way to get him the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
So I even think if we go out and maybe score in our first 2 drives, get a 3 and out on the 3rd one, maybe they're like, all right, you know, we got a 10-play package in for Javion Posey here.
Yeah.
You know, and let's see what we can get, you know, let's see if we can execute it. So I fully expect both to play regardless.
And with Emmons healthy, with Davidson healthy, Wester has looked good on some of those quick end arounds. I'd love to see Willie get hit on those as well. We could have a really explosive running attack this Friday night.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting as well. BJ Emmons had his best runs with Posey in the game. For whatever reason, you know, defense starts to pay a little bit more attention to just the running quarterback. Kind of, you know, even though Tronte's mostly running, they still have to keep an eye out for the pass. You know, for whatever reason, BJ Emmons was also energized with Posey.
The O-line can get to the second level. The extra thought of pulling, and I've pointed this out, and I don't know the play call, but there's a few plays where I've watched, and it could have just been a direct handoff, and maybe he didn't have the option to pull. But there's some times where I'm like, oh, if Tronte pulled that, it looked like, you know, he could have just beat one guy, and it looked like maybe he made the wrong decision to pull, or, you know, there was a play on one of the drives where Tronte rolled out. It was like a sprint out play. I rewatched it last night, and all the receivers were coming across, and he got sacked. Well, if you saw, the left tackle was blocking up the field like he thought it was a running play. So I wonder if that was some sort of RPO and it looked like Devin Hayes had a really nice lane. If Tronte maybe hands that off, people, people point out the message board. We run on the triple option. RPO is triple option. It's just a different version of it.
Absolutely.
But the best triple option teams, you still got to make the right read. It does, you know what I mean? It sounds great, but you still got to make the right read. And I think maybe that's just my best guess right now without being in the film room and, of what's happening on some of these plays. It's just a little extra second. That pop play to Michael Irvin Jr. that was almost intercepted. Do you guys kind of remember that play?
On the sideline, wasn't it?
No, down the middle.
Yeah, it was
Tronte almost kind of faked it, and he threw it down the middle, and the West Kentucky safety kind of almost undercut.
Yeah.
If Tronte looks that safety off for an extra half a second, Michael Irvin might score on that play.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between someone saying good play caller or bad play caller, because that play was there. So,
That'll come with time. He's still a redshirt junior. We got to remember that. He hasn't started a lot of games where he was asked to throw the ball. I do want to say before we move on to FIU, I do want to say about Tronte. I've seen some of our fans give him some shtick. Taggart and Javion Posey both said that Tronte was one of the first ones to talk to Posey, to let him know what to look for, and the first one to celebrate with him. So, Tronte cares about the team, and he wants the team to win, no matter if it's with Posey under center or himself under center. And that's something that's admirable.
The reason why we're 3-1, and I wish, more fans could have been there this year is, I pointed this out in my piece, is all the times we've had kind of bad luck in the past, with these type of games. That team never felt they were going to lose.
No.
And when we took the lead, you saw the defense on the side and kind of, I'm like, well, West Kentucky has no shot. Did no shot on that. None. They were dancing. Western Kentucky was beat before they snapped the ball first down. Yeah. And this team has fun and they support each other. That's why they're 3-1. That's why they're going to probably finish with 7-8 wins this year.
You're here.
Yeah, for sure. Again, just an overall awesome team win. And I think even though we have a entirely new coaching staff, there's enough veteran players that have been part of winning teams, right? They know what it takes to win. And I think that's kind of filling in the gaps a little bit where, there's lots of players missing, due to COVID, and the season is just a mess essentially. That's those players are able to kind of fill those gaps and take up that slack a little bit. So,
and they especially know how to win Shula Bowls, Dan.
Yeah.
Know how to win Shula Bowls. I mean, 3 in a row, coming up on 4. We're going to be talking about it in a second if you want to start the segue, man.
Yeah.
I mean, these players know how to beat Western Kentucky and FIU. That's just fact.
Yeah, that's true. We've got their numbers. So yeah, I guess that's a great transition over to FIU. So please enjoy this conversation with Eric Henry. All right, and now, as we've been doing lately for nearly every single game this year, we are having an opposing team's beat writer join us. And this weekend, it's kind of coming common tradition here. We have Eric Henry, who is the co-managing editor at Underdog Dynasty. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show.
Not a problem, guys. It's kind of been like our yearly thing, right? This is year 3. I remember year 1, I was kind of like that weird outsider. You guys were feeling me out, weren't sure what to think, but I feel like, we're kind of family here, right? Jack's a fellow 813er. Shane, I spend way too much time talking to him. I feel like we're good here on the pod, right?
One big family, yeah.
As they say on Levitard, friend of the show.
Yes, absolutely.
We got to give Eric a hat for that or something.
We have hats?
Not yet. Maybe we'll work on it.
We'll see.
Yeah, so I guess, this being FIU week, I think FIU fans are a little bit more aware of what's been going on at FIU. But for those that aren't, kind of give us the rundown of FIU season. Obviously, been pretty disappointing this year. certainly for FIU fans, but what's been kind of the rundown so far of what we've seen from this year's FIU team?
So you know what, man? This season for the Panthers is pretty much what you want to make of it, right? If you want to take the optimistic point of view, you can say you push an undefeated Liberty team, to a 2-point loss, right? A game that, quite frankly, you played 3 quarterbacks. The offense didn't really get going to the second half. You would think they'd get blown out and push them to 2. You can take a look at the Middle Tennessee State game, a game that, quite frankly, you should have won. If you'd gotten a first down or 2 in the second half, you probably win that game. You lose by 1 score, right? And then, of course, the Jacksonville State game, while a disappointing loss, you lose by 9 points. There's the flip side of that, which is Middle Tennessee, like I said. The offense was horrendous, quite frankly, and that was the game that Butch Davis came out and said post-game. He told me that they had 17 false positives. I asked him why he played Kalen Wiggins through the entire second half after rotating 3 quarterbacks for the first 6 quarters, and Butch kind of said, because he's the only one who practiced. So, you have a situation like that. And then Jacksonville State, I mean, quite frankly, you're never going to see, you guys know this being, a Conference USA guys, you're never going to see an FCS team come in and play more guys than an FBS team. Jacksonville State played 60 guys. If you subtract the 2 quarterbacks, kicker, punter, long snapper from FIU only played 39 guys in that loss to Jacksonville State. So that shows you how banged up the team is, right? So it's a tale of whichever side you want to make of it. Are the losses disappointing? Yes, but the fact of the matter is this: it's college football in 2020. COVID. You guys know very well. If you ask Doc Holliday, he may say you guys weren't affected that much, but I'll let you guys listen to the audio on that one. But yeah, this team's really been hurt by injuries. When you're the team's leading receiver from last year and the NFL caliber left tackle are watching the game from the student section, it's not a recipe for success, and that's kind of where they've been this year.
It literally took Eric's first response to trigger us just by saying Doc Holliday. Did you guys notice that? he had to do it to us. Well, Eric, yeah, you did. Listen, man, I'm happy you mentioned Liberty because that was an impressive loss. Shane and Dan, we talk about this all the time. We hate impressive losses. We hate moral victories.
Yeah.
That was a good game. And the thing that really stood out for me was Stone Norton, his coming out party, freshman, really, really gave the Flames a good scare up there in Lynchburg. And now you can see how well Liberty's doing. So I'm curious about Stone's development. How has he been? Well, first off, has he played after that? Has he played against Middle and has he played against Liberty? If he has, how has development come along? I said Liberty. I meant Jacksonville State in the last part. Yeah, beg your pardon. How's development coming along? Is he the future of the FIU offense? Could he possibly be the 2020-2021 quarterback, the guy for Butch Davis? We'll talk about him later on, though.
Sure, yeah. So I'll try to touch on all those points, right? So he has played post Liberty. He did play. He played, I believe, 2 drives. It was 2 drives into Middle Tennessee. Jack, that was the game that where I said Butch had the false positives. So later on in the week, once they learned that those guys, would be able to play, Stone didn't have very much practice time. Same thing with Max Bortenschlager. So once they saw that things weren't clicking, they just rode with Kalen the entire time. And then Stone got the start against Jacksonville State, rotated with Max Bortenschlager. But that was an abysmal offensive performance. There's no other way about it. I don't have Stone's numbers offhand, but the offense, as far as the passing game, did not get going. Can he be the future, right? Or sorry, yes, what's his development first? Yeah, Stone is someone who, in my opinion, if he can get, and it's hard to do this in this, 2020 COVID football season, if he can get a full week of practice, which is what I'm really kind of hoping that at least, whether it's Stone or Max, each quarterback or the quarterback we're going to see has had a full week under them to really practice, I think he can light it up. We saw one thing about him, Jack, is he's a gamer. The rap on him, to be completely transparent with you guys, the rap on him coming into the year from, people who were able to observe camp and are, within the program, was that he'd have one practice where he was really good. And then the next practice, he'd be inconsistent. And, a veteran coach like Butch Davis, you can't do that and expect to play quarterback for him, right? So, but in the game, he showed up and he made the most plays against Liberty. So I do think he can progress. And can he be the future? Yeah. But this year, it's I hate using this excuse, guys, because I think it's hitting every team equally. But I think when you have young quarterbacks, and Max Bortenschlager is that as well. Even though he's a veteran, a grad transfer from Maryland, he only started 8 games, played in 10 in his career, so he's young as well. Missing spring practice, I think, really hurt these guys because they didn't have the opportunity to really establish themselves. And I think this is almost the time where just give Stone a start. Give him, start to finish, give him a start and see what he's got. And I think you can say the same thing for, the other quarterback in Max and Bortenschlager. but especially Stone being a young guy, he's had the most success. So just give him a start and see what you have.
Eric, I know, because, we do the Shula Bowl podcast together. I know you've watched FAU, I think, almost as much as I have this year. You've been able to catch pretty much every game so far this year. What are the mismatches, though? Not so much on the FAU side, but we'll start actually, what are the mismatches, the potential things FIU can exploit possibly in this game?
Dan, I was hoping you'd take it the other way around, man. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, that's the next question, but I gave you the hard one first. So
I'm going to be honest with you. I was thinking about that as I've been writing my game preview, and I'm really hard pressed to find a matchup FIU wise where I think, they have a decisive advantage. I'll say this. If JJ Holloman is healthy, he was did not get very many snaps, the past week. I don't believe he played at all against Jacksonville State, if memory serves me correct. That's someone who just on sheer athleticism, that's going to be a mismatch, right? Bryce Singleton's a nice receiver. We remember the one-handed catch, a couple years ago against FAU, but that's not, I wouldn't say that's a mismatch. Holloman is a guy I'd say that. Defensively, it's tough, man. Without Alexis Jean-Baptiste, doesn't look like he will be able to play. I mean, unless there's a late decision there as far as that goes. Chris Whitaker came in. Those are just for FAU fans. I should backtrack. Those are two SEC transfers. Alexis Jean-Baptiste came in from Arkansas. Chris Whitaker came in from Kentucky, two SEC transfers. Whitaker's been banged up, so it's kind of hard to see him kind of getting off. Maybe a linebacker, Tyson Maeva, the Boise State transfer. But even on the outside, I look at the strength of FIU's defense, which is the secondary, and I texted you this during the game, Shane. I've been really impressed with Aaron Young and TJ Chase. I mean, the numbers might not back it up, and of course, FAU's quarterback play has a little bit to do with that. But they look like they're a step ahead at this level opposed to when they were playing at the ACC. So to kind of, hopefully give you somewhat of an answer, I got to go with Holloman. Holloman against, whichever DB that is. I don't know if that's going to be Smoke Mungeon or, whoever may be. But I think that would be a mismatch.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about a little bit this before we had, you on. It's just, I don't think FAU's played a really dynamic receiver yet this year. Teams just aren't throwing at Zion Gilbert. They're trying to go to Mungeon, the young guy, and he's been great so far. Just almost 5 interceptions, as we pointed out. But, I think we saw a little bit in the UTSA game. Frank Harris almost was able to exploit some of the aggressiveness. They were really close on a couple plays. And so I'm just a little nervous if Stone gets in a rhythm with JJ. They can hit 2 of those, and it can be 14 points. So,
real quick, I will not take that Victor Cruz slander. I will not do that. But about dynamic Conference USA receivers, I will not stand for that.
Okay. My other question is though for the last 3 years, we can kind of talk about secondary. The story of FIU has just been FAU being able to run the ball. Yeah. All over the place for 3 years. For fans, though, Malcolm Davidson missed the last game, but he did start practicing this week. He was a game time decision versus Western Kentucky. And BJ Emmons, I think, throughout the Western Kentucky game, started to look a little better. So where is FIU stand with its run defense? I know this is the number one question you've gotten over the last this entire beat.
I've been covering the team.
And is this going to be another Malcolm Davidson show?
Surprisingly, Shane, the FIU run defense has been better. I know the numbers. If you look at versus Liberty, right? I want to say, unfortunately, sorry guys, I don't have my game notes directly on me, right? Typically, I keep them on me, so I don't have the exact numbers. But against Liberty, I want to say they gave up something like 215, 220 yards. But if you take a look at the chunk plays, they had a chunk run from Malik Willis, the quarterback, a chunk run from Joshua Mack, the running back. You take those out, they were really hard pressed. It was something like 50-something carries they had to get those yards. Same thing against Middle Tennessee. Asher O'Hara, you guys know him really well. He's going to run for 3, run for 4. He may slip by and get that, occasional 13-yard run. But they had to work for it. And it was the same thing against Jacksonville State, where they had to Jacksonville State, I believe, once their, star quarterback was injured, I think only threw the ball 6 times. And they had to work really hard for those rushing yards. So the run defense has been better. But, Shane, you guys know this. They haven't played a rushing attack. I mean, Liberty is a great Malik Willis is a dynamic rusher, but they haven't faced the backs of Malcolm Davidson, BJ Emmons, guys like that. So to give you an answer, Shane, the run defense has been better. I think a lot of that's been with Tyson Maeva, Jamal Gates as well. They're missing 2 defensive tackles, and Andrew Tarver up front, and of course, with Alexis Jean-Baptiste on the edge, but they haven't faced running backs like FAU's.
Now, that kind of takes me into it in the discussion, we had earlier on the pod. Obviously, this week is FE's a little bit of quarterback controversy. It sounds like with that matchup, a running quarterback seems to be more of a threat to FIU. Do you feel just based on the matchup, do you think Javion Posey poses more of a threat to FIU than Nick Tronti at this point?
Shane, I could give you my opinion, or I could just point to Asher O'Hara and Malik Willis, right? So,
yeah.
Well, Malik Willis more dynamic than Asher. I mean, that obviously more dynamic is going to break longer runs. Asher's ability to extend plays is what hurt FIU in the second half. If you watched the first throw, I believe, of the Middle Tennessee State game, I'm a big Asher O'Hara fan, but I don't necessarily know what he was doing on that pass. He's kind of chucked it up there for his guys, got picked off. On the second drive, got picked off. But he's that type of guy who can extend plays, use his legs, and then eventually come third, fourth quarter once your defense is tired, especially if the FIU offense can't get first downs and the defense has to be out there forever, that's going to pose more of a threat. So no pun intended, but I would go with Javion Posey in the sense that that's probably going to be more of a threat against the FIU run defense. Not that Nick Tronti can't be as well, but yeah, Posey definitely poses a different option.
I do want to say out of four of us, there's probably three that are big Asher O'Hare stands, and we can probably guess the one who is not the big AOH fan. Shane, I'm looking at you, brother. He's not a fan.
I think he's good. But
he's not elite. We've talked about this. This is a down year for Conference USA quarterbacks. He's not elite. We'll agree on that. I just realized I meant Victor Tucker from Charlotte, not Victor Cruz.
Yeah,
so,
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Yeah, I've only had one cup of coffee today, guys. So thanks for throwing me a bone. One last question before we go, Eric. If this season continues, it's a big loss for Shula Bowl 19. Can you talk about the situation with Butch Davis? Is his seat going to be hot?
Yeah, that seems to be a question, and not even just that you're asking FIU fans. The Jacksonville State loss was disappointing, right? There's no two ways about it. But here's the thing, man, and I've said this on Conference USA podcast. I did radio in El Paso. Dude, I think in a COVID 2020 year, I'd be hard-pressed to really get rid of a coach. And if you look at Southern Miss, that situation with Jay Hobson, that probably had more to do with him trying to bring in Art Briles and saying God told him to do it than, necessarily his actions or his record. Not that his record was great, but he did things to really kind of exacerbate that resignation, right? With Butch Davis, I don't see his seat being hot. I think the relationship between he and Pete Garcia is too tight, quite frankly. And just to kind of give my own opinion, sure, if in theory a big loss against FAU, you don't win a game this year, that looks ugly, no doubt about it. But I mean, man, it's hard to compete when you only got 40 guys out there on the roster, and it's not because, I cover Butch. I just genuinely would be hard pressed to say, all right, you've been the most successful coach we've ever had. And in this weird COVID year, all right, on to the next guy, So that's kind of my thoughts on that. It would be, to answer your question exactly, Jack, I think it'd be 1 in a million shot that Butch Davis is not the head coach in 2021.
I do agree with you. I am curious if that win against Miami didn't happen almost a year ago, would we still be having the same conversation? So food for thought. I wish Butch, the best success down there. I think we all do. We know he's a good, decent guy. So it is interesting. And we talk about this all the time. Almost every single year the Shula Bowl happens. We wish both teams were as best as they can be for this game so it can mean more. We were talking about this before we started recording. This kind of feels like, I think it was a 2018 year where FAU was pretty low and FIU was looking pretty good. And sometimes you never know. FAU can just turn it on and beat FIU. So don't give up, Panther fans. Don't give up.
Jack, I'll add this really quickly before you guys let me go. You guys know I'm a UCF grad, and those games are more exciting when it's the 2017 game, right? When both teams are top 25, 49-42, back and forth. That's kind of my hope for this Shula Bowl game, right? Or Shula Bowl rivalry. That one year you can come in, both teams are competing for the East, and it comes down to that game. So I'll piggyback on those thoughts as well.
And we both beat Marshall that year.
Love to see it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
We both
Yeah.
both take care of Marshall so we can fight it out with each other. All right. Well, Eric, again, we appreciate the time. Always appreciate the time. And just what's at this point, where's the best place for people to be able to find more about you and also more about FIU?
Yeah. So of course, I always appreciate you guys having me on. Always good to catch up with Jack and catch up with you, Dan. You can find my work at Underdog Dynasty, SB Nation's home for G5 football coverage, and you can find me on Twitter at EricCHenry_.
Awesome.
And just in case there's any question, where can you find the best Cuban sandwich in the world? Just out of curiosity, where is that located at?
Well, that's probably the easiest question in the world, and that's Tampa, Florida, sir.
Oh, I was curious. I wasn't too sure. I heard some rubbish from somewhere else. I
went on Larry Bluestein's show. He said, they're going to send it back to Ybor City. All right. Well, hey, if you guys don't like good food, that's fine. Jack, we'll take it.
Yeah, more for us, brother. Sounds good to me.
Tampa.
All right. Well,
poor man's Fort
cup,
Lauderdale.
baby. We got the cup. We got Cubans. We might make the playoffs for the Bucks. There you go. Hey.
You pulled a pitcher too early. All that good stuff.
Hey, we made it. We made it.
All right. Well, we will we'll hope for an entertaining Shula Bowl this weekend. And again, we thank you for being on. And good luck.
No problem, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. We hope you enjoyed that conversation with Eric Henry. And I guess we'll kind of wrap up here. As most of you probably know, Sheduer Sanders did decommit from FAU. Shane, what do you have on that?
Yeah, guys, it's a lot of people thought this was something that just was going to be automatic when his dad took the job at Jackson State. And I'm just going to say this, it was still a really tough kind of decision from what I know. It wasn't made lightly. There's you guys could imagine how hard it is to have your dad be the head coach somewhere and almost in a way right now be the biggest HBCU program, just name wise, marketing wise. And a lot of that comes with father and son being there. So, it was just hard it was almost just bad luck for FAU. You know what I mean? I hate when people want to compare this to a Jordan Scarlett situation. No, this wasn't just some kid flaking out on us. This was just, a lot of pressure. Not saying that, he didn't make a decision that he didn't want to go. He wants to play for his dad, who wouldn't. But, from what I know, it was a tough decision. But, FAU, we'll be fine. He decommitted, and we still have the number one class in Conference USA. And I can tell you, as signing day gets closer, we're less than a month and a half away from early signing period. There's going to be some more big names and surprises and some changes to this class. So just keep following along, guys.
Basketball season's almost here, guys. Remember that FAU hashtag is a basketball school. We talk about this all the time, but this is going to be Jalen Ingram's team again. Coach Dusty May said that the schedule is coming out soon, and that was a direct quote from him last week in the media day. We do know that the boys will be playing up in Gainesville. They will be playing the Gators sometime in December. For those who don't know, Dusty May's son, Jack, who won a state championship in the state of Florida in high school, he now plays for UF. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch. The team was pegged to finish 10th overall in Conference USA. I think they can do better, and I think they've shown that towards the end of last season that they could do better. They were disappointed not to get a shot at number one UNT in the conference tournament, especially after Ingram just played his best game of the year. So if they can keep the momentum going, then this team can make some serious noise this spring.
All right, thanks for that quick basketball update. And if you follow NCAA basketball at all, I think there's a lot of confidence behind this season and making it work. So I think that's another exciting thing that we can look forward to. So as usual, we appreciate you all for joining us. Make sure you check everything out that's going on at FAUAllisNest.com. Find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google, anything like that for your audio only. And we appreciate you being with us, and we will see you next week. Go Owls.